Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a topic that completely shifts how we approach the future of work. When most of us hear the phrase AI integration, our minds just immediately default to the tech, right? We think about the algorithms, the data pipelines, maybe the software updates. But as we'll see by analyzing our source material today, bringing AI into your organization successfully actually requires a totally different kind of foundation. It's an organizational readiness problem. We're going to break down the cultural foundations you absolutely need to make AI integration actually stick. So let's jump right in.
Section 1. AI as a cultural shift. Let's look way beyond the technology itself.
Okay, let's dive into this because there is a massive paradigm shift happening right now. Our source material makes a really foundational argument. Introducing AI is just as much a cultural transformation as it is a technological one. We literally have to stop viewing AI integration as just some IT department project. Think about it like this. You can go out and buy the absolute most advanced, expensive AI workflow tool on the market today. But if your team doesn't trust it, or if they fundamentally misunderstand how to even use it, well, that software just becomes an incredibly expensive paperweight. If your team isn't culturally prepared to adopt these new tools, the best tech in the world simply won't matter. You need an organization-wide transformation in mindset long before you ever write a single line of code.
And the source material puts the mandate pretty clearly for those at the top. It says leaders need to prepare their organizations to embrace change with confidence. Notice that specific phrasing there. The primary job for leadership in the age of AI isn't just to deploy software perfectly, it's about inspiring people to embrace the shift. But what does building that kind of confidence actually look like in the real world? Well, it means radical transparency about what the tech can and cannot do. It's about sitting down and actively mapping out new career trajectories for your staff in a post-AI landscape. Basically, it means steadying the ship and making sure everyone feels secure and prepared instead of just leaving them in the dark. Moving on to Section 2, Assessing Your Workforce Readiness. Let's break down the core process of how leaders actually pull this off.
According to our modules framework, building this confident culture requires 3 vital interconnected steps. You actively assess your workforce's readiness, you align your training programs to meet the exact gaps you just found, and you deliberately manage staff concerns. And what's absolutely crucial to understand here is how these actions relate to each other. This isn't just some linear checklist you do once and forget about. It's a continuous feedback loop. You can't just train people and ignore their psychological fears about the tech, and you definitely can't assess their skills once and call it a day. You have to constantly assess where your team is, train them for where they need to be, and support them emotionally through every single phase of the transition.
Let's look a little closer at the mechanics of those first 2 components, the assessment and alignment. Together, these create what we call workforce readiness. So how do companies actually reach this state? It goes way beyond a casual employee survey. Real assessment involves implementing detailed skills matrices, conducting thorough workflow audits, and even shadowing your employees to see exactly where AI can intersect with their daily tasks. Do they get the basics? Do they know how it impacts their specific day-to-day? Once you establish that highly accurate baseline, then the training alignment begins. And listen, this means totally abandoning generic, off-the-shelf tutorials. The training has to be surgically aligned to the specific operational gaps you uncovered during those workflow audits.
Which brings us to Section 3, Managing Job Displacement Fears. This is the human element, and honestly, the most delicate part of the whole process. Job displacement. It's a heavy, intimidating concept, right? And it represents a very real fear for a lot of employees when they hear the letters A and I. Our source material stresses that managing staff concerns about this exact issue is completely non-negotiable. If leaders want to build genuine confidence, they've got to tackle these fears head-on. But how do you actually frame that conversation so it feels authentic? Because telling people that AI augments instead of replaces has become kind of cliche at this point. To be believable, leaders need to get specific. You need to sit down and explain exactly which mundane, repetitive tasks are going to vanish, and then demonstrate how all that saved time will be reallocated to higher-level, more engaging work that actually requires human creativity. Ignoring the very real emotion of job displacement will just completely derail the cultural trust you're working so hard to build.
All right, Section 4, Real-World Upskilling Successes. Let's look at a few pioneers who have actually navigated this transition beautifully. To prove that this cultural approach really works, our source highlights Telecom Malaysia. When they tackled the aligned training step, they completely bypassed the standard, boring corporate memos. Instead, they built an entire dedicated digital academy focused specifically on upskilling their existing employees. And the real insight here is understanding why a dedicated academy works so well.
Establishing a permanent, branded educational space signals a long-term commitment. It separates this vital training from those transient, one-off HR webinars that people just ignore anyway. By investing in a structured academy, they sent this undeniable message to their workforce: we are willing to invest the resources to give you the tools to thrive in this new environment.
And this brilliantly illustrates what Singapore Airlines did too. They provide another excellent blueprint. They implemented highly structured reskilling initiatives to proactively prepare their workforce for change. Proactive is the key word here. They didn't wait for the tech to disrupt their operations. They didn't wait for legacy roles to become obsolete. They actually predicted how specific roles would change and started reskilling their teams far in advance of rolling out the new tech. By managing that cultural shift and closing the skills gap well before it became an operational crisis, they built foundational readiness and institutional confidence all at the exact same time.
Moving to our final part, Section 5, Building Your Readiness Checklist. Let's talk about how to apply this to your own teams. Now it's time to take all these insights and turn them into a practical, customized tool, your Readiness Checklist. Your checklist needs to hit 3 primary goals. It has to evaluate workforce readiness accurately, ensure your training programs align perfectly with organizational goals, and it absolutely must contain clear action items to address job displacement concerns empathetically. But here's the catch. To truly get value out of this, it can't just be some static diagnostic document that you fill out once and file away in a folder. You have to treat your readiness checklist as a living, breathing pulse check. Bring it into your weekly leadership meetings, update it constantly, and use it to continuously track the cultural temperature of your transition.
So, what does this all mean for us? It leaves us with a really critical question to chew on. Is your organization truly ready to embrace the change? The conversation can't just be about whether your servers can handle a new AI tool or if you've got the budget for enterprise licensing. The technology is already here. Frankly, it's ready today. The real question is, are you willing to do the hard, human work required to ensure your team's culture is ready for tomorrow? Take the framework we've explored today, build out that dynamic readiness checklist, and start prioritizing your culture just as much as your code. Thanks for hanging out with me for this deep dive. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.